The Nexari warships appeared at dawn, their obsidian hulls blotting out the rising sun like an artificial eclipse. Dr. Amanda Reynolds stood at her office window in West Point, coffee forgotten in her trembling hand, as she watched history unfold in real time. 20 years of studying military history hadn't prepared her for becoming part of it. Dr. Reynolds. Lieutenant Cooper burst through her door, tablet in hand. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. He swallowed hard. It's a demand for surrender. Amanda set down her coffee, her mind already racing through historical parallels. Show me. The message was elegantly simple in its arrogance. Submit or be eradicated. You have one planetary rotation to comply. Get me General Martinez, she ordered, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. And I need access to the military archives. All of them. While the world erupted into panic, Amanda saw an opportunity. The Nexari's message revealed something crucial. They expected fear to do their work for them. It was a tactic as old as warfare itself, and one that had failed against humanity countless times before. Within hours, she stood before the Joint Chiefs in their underground command center, her presentation ready. The room thrummed with tension as strategic alerts flashed across multiple screens. Gentlemen, she began, we're about to make first contact's greatest mistake. Assuming technological superiority equals inevitable victory. She gestured to the historical footage playing behind her. Vietnam, Afghanistan, the American Revolution. History is littered with technologically superior forces being defeated by primitive opponents. We're not talking about guerrilla warfare against colonial powers, General Martinez interrupted. These aliens could glass the planet. Exactly, Amanda smiled. They have the power to destroy us outright, but instead, they're demanding surrender. They want our submission, not our extinction. That's their first mistake. She pulled up her proposal. Instead of a response, I suggest we send them this. Our complete military history, every battle, every war, every innovation born from human conflict. Show them what they're really facing. The room erupted in objections until Admiral Chen's quiet voice cut through the chaos. You want to show them our playbook. I want to show them our capacity for warfare. Amanda's eyes blazed with conviction. Every species that achieved space travel must have unified their planet at some point. They probably had one, maybe two global conflicts before achieving peace. Humanity. We've had thousands of years of continuous warfare. We've turned it into an art form. She brought up footage from various conflicts. We've fought with sticks and stones, with arrows and swords, with guns and bombs. We've fought in deserts, in jungles and Arctic wastes. We've fought over religion, resources, ideology, and sometimes just because we could. We don't just adapt to warfare. We innovate it. The room had fallen silent, all eyes fixed on the streaming footage of human conflict through the ages. Send them everything, she continued. Show them how we turned farming tools into weapons, how we weaponized the atom itself. Show them how we can fight with nothing but sharpened sticks and still win. Let them see what they're really asking for. After 12 tense hours of debate, the Joint Chiefs agreed. Amanda personally compiled the transmission, ending it with a message of her own. You demand our surrender, claiming superiority through your advanced technology. But you should understand something. Humanity doesn't need technology to wage war. We've been perfecting conflict since we learned to pick up rocks. You're not the first to try conquering us. You won't be the last to fail. You chose violence. Now let us show you what that really means. The Nexari's response came 3 hours later. Their massive ships descended through the atmosphere, weapon systems charging. Amanda watched from her office as the invasion began, her coffee once again cold and forgotten. But this time, she was smiling. The Nexari had made their choice, falling into the same trap that had claimed so many would be conquerors before them. They had mistaken humanity's technological inferiority for weakness. They were about to learn just how expensive that mistake would be. Captain Jack "Ghost" Mitchell watched from the shadows of the abandoned Chicago Transit Authority station as another Nexari patrol marched past above. Their crystalline armor caught the morning light, creating prismatic patterns on the cracked pavement. Beautiful, if you ignored the fact that they were here to subjugate humanity. "Ghost, we're ready on Michigan Avenue." Sarah's voice crackled through his modified radio. The Nexari might have knocked out traditional communications, but they hadn't counted on humans reverting to AM frequencies and jury-rate hardware. "Copy that, Sparks. Wait for my signal." Mitchell smiled as he watched the alien patrol approach the perfect ambush point. His team had spent 3 days setting this trap, using everything from rewired traffic lights to modified water pressure systems. The Nexari's rigid formation was picture-perfect, exactly like their tactical manuals probably demanded. That's what made them predictable. That's what made them vulnerable. "Remember, folks," he whispered into his radio, "they're expecting a technological war. Let's give them a history lesson instead." The trap was elegantly simple. The Nexari's energy shields were impenetrable to conventional weapons, but they had one critical flaw. They were designed to stop high-velocity impacts and energy weapons. They weren't calibrated for the pressure of several thousand gallons of water suddenly erupting from beneath their feet. Now, the street erupted. Fire hydrants, sewer lines, and underground water mains burst simultaneously. The sudden deluge didn't damage the Nexari directly, but it did exactly what Mitchell had planned. Their heavy armor, combined with their shield systems, made them buoyant. The aliens flailed as the water lifted them off their feet, their perfect formation dissolving into chaos. "Phase 2, Mitchell ordered, triggering the next stage. The rewired traffic lights surrounding the intersection suddenly powered up, their cables exposed and dragging through the water. Electricity arced between the Nexari shields, creating a feedback loop that overloaded their systems. Within seconds, the most advanced army in the galaxy had been defeated by basic physics and improvised infrastructure. "Clean-up crew, you're up." Mitchell's team emerged from various hiding spots, armed with modified EMP grenades, courtesy of their reverse-engineered Nexari tech. The disabled aliens never stood a chance. As his team collected alien weapons and armor for analysis, Mitchell's radio crackled again. "Ghost, you need to see this. Channel 7. He pulled out a battery-powered tablet, accessing the emergency broadcast frequency. Similar ambushes were being reported across the globe. In London, resistance fighters had turned the underground into a maze of death traps. In Tokyo, they'd used the city's massive electronic billboards to overload Nexari optical sensors. In Mumbai, they transformed the narrow streets into kill zones using nothing but mirrors and focused sunlight. "They still don't get it," he muttered, watching the reports flood in. The Nexari kept following their standard invasion protocols, kept marching in their perfect formations, kept expecting humanity to fight a conventional war. Mitchell's radio squawked urgently. "Ghost, we've got a problem. They're adapting, sending in hover tanks down Roosevelt." "Good," he grinned, pulling out his modified tablet. "Time to show them why you don't give humans time to study your technology. Sparks, remember that drone hack you theorized? The one using modified game controllers. That was just a crazy idea I haven't even tested. Test it now. I'm linking you to the captured Nexari combat data." What followed would later be known as the Roosevelt Road Rebellion. The first time humans successfully hijacked Nexari vehicles using technology cobbled together from video game consoles and captured alien tech. The sight of Nexari hover tanks being controlled with PlayStation controllers would become one of the war's most iconic images. As Mitchell watched the chaos unfold, he keyed his radio one final time. "All units, spread the word. Document everything. Share every tactic, every hack, every crazy idea that works." They thought their superior technology made them invincible. Let's show them what happens when humans decide to get creative. The war for Earth was far from over, but the rules of engagement had changed. The Nexeri had brought space-age weapons to subjugate humanity. Humanity responded by turning their own technology, and everything else, into weapons they never imagined possible. In the end, that would make all the difference. Colonel Jessica Hayes stared at the Nexeri psychological warfare broadcast, playing across the salvaged monitor, her eyes reflecting the alien symbols as they scrolled past. After 3 months of studying their attempts at breaking human morale, she'd finally cracked their pattern and found their fatal flaw. They're trying to apply logic to an emotional response, she explained to her team gathered in the converted bunker beneath the Pentagon ruins. Every threat, every demonstration of power, is calculated to make us realize resistance is futile. They expect us to make the rational choice and surrender. Lieutenant Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. And that's their mistake. That's their catastrophic failure of understanding. Hayes pulled up footage from around the globe. Look at what happens after each of their demonstration of power broadcasts. The screens showed various human responses to Nexeri attacks. In Australia, after they vaporized Sydney Harbour Bridge, locals began using the ruins for ambush points. When they destroyed the Eiffel Tower, Parisians turned the molten metal into improvised weapons. Every act meant to demoralize instead sparked increasingly creative resistance. They don't understand spite. Hayes smiled, her expression fierce. They can't compute that humans will hurt themselves just to hurt their enemy more. Their entire psychological warfare strategy is based on the assumption that we'll prioritize survival over victory. So what's the plan, Colonel? Rodriguez leaned forward, intrigued. Hayes typed a series of commands, hijacking the Nexeri's own broadcast frequency. We're going to give them so much human irrationality that their tactical eye has a nervous breakdown. Operation Mindbreak began at dawn. When the Nexeri broadcast their usual demands for surrender, they received thousands of responses. Everything from classical music to cat videos to ancient war chants, all transmitted simultaneously. Their AI, programmed to analyze human communications for tactical planning, began detecting patterns where none existed. They're trying to categorize our responses, Hayes explained as she watched the alien ship's erratic movements. Their whole military doctrine is built on predictive algorithms, but how do you predict a species that will rickroll their invaders? The next phase was even more devastating. Hayes had noticed that the Nexeri pulled back when humans acted particularly irrational by their standards. So she orchestrated what appeared to be mass suicide charges against their positions, except the humans were actually using the aliens' predictable retreat responses to heal into superior tactical positions. Status report, she barked, watching the tactical display. Their southern command center just withdrew entirely, Rodriguez reported, grinning. Apparently, the sight of grandmother's knitting circle charging their position with modified Roombas, strapped with explosives, was too much for their combat logic to handle. But Hayes's masterstroke came when she decoded the underlying mathematics of Nexeri communication protocols. They use a base 12 system for everything, she explained to her team. Their entire civilization is built on patterns and predictability, so let's give them some human mathematics. She transmitted pi, not just the number, but its visual representation in art, music, and chaos theory. The never-ending, never-repeating sequence was anathema to the Nexeri's orderly minds. Their attempts to find patterns in it nearly crashed their flagship's primary AI. They're broadcasting again, Rodriguez announced. The main screen lit up with alien text. Hayes laughed as she read the translation. The Nexeri were demanding that humans cease their violations of mathematical harmony. They considered humanity's comfort with infinity and chaos to be a form of psychological warfare in itself. Send them our response, Hayes ordered. Tell them that if they think this is chaos, wait until they see what we consider getting creative. The bunker erupted in cheers as the Nexeri fleet began a tactical retreat, their formations broken by the fear of what these unpredictable humans might do next. They had come expecting to break humanity's will through superior force and logical inevitability. Instead, they found themselves facing an enemy that turned their own psychology against them. "Remember," Hayes addressed her team as they celebrated, "they're not just fighting our weapons or our tactics. They're fighting every human who ever chose to spite their enemy rather than submit. They're fighting every creative solution, every irrational decision that somehow worked, every moment in human history where we chose defiance over survival." She smiled as another Nexeri ship withdrew from orbit, its AI overwhelmed by the chaos of human response patterns. And that's a fight they can never win. Dr. Marcus Thompson stood in his underground lab, surrounded by the gutted remains of Nexeri technology. The sanctum beneath the Rockies hummed with the energy of hybrid machines that shouldn't exist, let alone work. Scattered gaming controllers, modified smartphones, and cannibalized kitchen appliances littered the workbenches, each converted into interfaces for alien tech. "Sir," his assistant Kyle burst in, tablet in hand, "the Nexeri are broadcasting again. They're calling our modifications technological blasphemy." Marcus grinned, hands deep in the circuitry of their latest creation. "Good. That means it's working. How's the Chimera device field test going?" The main screen lit up with live footage from Seattle. A teenager was piloting a captured Nexeri scout ship using what appeared to be a modified Xbox controller, dancing through the sky with a grace that made the aliens' rigid flight patterns look obsolete. They're so caught up in proper ways to use their technology that they never considered alternative interfaces, Marcus explained, making final adjustments to the device in front of him. "Their neural links require years of training. We just map their controls to something humans already know how to use." The lab's warning lights suddenly flashed red. "Nexeri patrol detected," the automated system announced. 3 heavy units approaching from the North Ridge. Instead of panicking, Marcus smiled. "Perfect timing. Kyle, prep the CHAOS protocol. Let's show them our latest party trick." The CHAOS protocol, Computerized Hybrid Adaptive Operating System, was Marcus's masterpiece. It took everything humans had learned about gaming engines, random number generators, and adaptive AI, merged it with reversed engineered Nexeri tech, and created something entirely new. "Initiating sequence," Kyle announced, fingers flying across his keyboard. On the external cameras, they watched the Nexeri units approach in their characteristic perfect formation. The aliens had learned to be wary of human traps, but their sensors showed nothing dangerous, just random electromagnetic noise they'd learned to ignore. That was their first mistake. The CHAOS system activated. Every piece of hybrid tech in the lab powered up simultaneously, creating an electromagnetic symphony that made the Nexeri sensors go haywire. Their shields, programmed to defend against specific energy signatures, couldn't adapt to attacks that constantly changed frequency and pattern. "Now for the really fun part," Marcus muttered, activating his latest creation. The device hummed to life, interfacing with the scattered hybrid tech around the lab. On screen, the Nexeri units froze as their systems detected something impossible, their own technology operating in ways their makers had never intended. "You see," Marcus explained to his captivated team, "the Nexeri built their tech to be perfect, predictable, and pure. But humans, we've spent centuries taking things apart, putting them back together wrong, and somehow making them work better." The demonstration was spectacular. Hybrid drones, built from salvaged alien tech and consumer electronics, swarmed the Nexeri units. Each drone operated on a modified version of the aliens' own control protocols, but with a distinctly human twist. They learned, adapted, and evolved their tactics in real time. Within minutes, the Nexeri patrol retreated, their systems compromised by attacks they couldn't predict or understand. But Marcus wasn't done. He transmitted the specs for their hybrid tech on open channels, knowing the aliens would intercept them. "Let them see what we've done to their precious technology," he declared. "Let them witness how we've improved it by breaking all their rules." The response was immediate. Nexeri communications erupted with what their translators identified as expressions of horror and revulsion. The sight of their pure technology merged with primitive human devices, operating in ways that defied their fundamental principles, struck deeper than any conventional weapon. "Send the next transmission," Marcus ordered, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Show them the games we've modified to train hybrid tech pilots. Show them how we've turned their neural interfaces into smartphone apps. Show them everything." Kyle looked up from his console, grinning. "Think they'll appreciate how we used Minecraft redstone mechanics to reconfigure their quantum processors?" "Probably not," Marcus laughed. "But that's exactly the point. They gave us access to their technology, expecting us to be overwhelmed by its complexity. Instead, we made it better by making it worse, at least by their standards." The lab erupted in cheers as reports flooded in from around the world. Other research teams had caught on, sharing their own hybrid innovations. The Nexary's technological advantage was disappearing, undone not by humanity matching their advancement, but by humans reimagining what advancement meant. "Remember," Marcus addressed his team as they celebrated, "technology isn't about perfection. It's about adaptation. And that's something humans have always done better than anyone else." Kelly Davidson hadn't planned on running a global resistance network from a kindergarten classroom, but the crayon drawings on the walls provided the perfect cover. The Nexary's advanced scanning systems swept right past what they dismissed as primitive child's play, never realizing they were looking at one of Earth's most sophisticated communication hubs. "Status report," she called out, watching her team work from child-sized furniture. Former Silicon Valley engineers typed on laptops disguised as elementary school computers, while cryptographers used children's art supplies to encode messages in plain sight. "Dark Swarm is holding steady," reported Mike, her head of networks. "The Nexary still can't figure out how we're coordinating global resistance with their communications grid down." Kelly smiled, picking up a piece of chalk. "That's because they're looking for technology that matches their level." She began drawing what appeared to be a hopscotch pattern on the floor. To most observers, it looked like a simple children's game. To resistance members, it was a coded message about Nexary patrol patterns. "They expect sophisticated encryption," she explained, adding another seemingly random pattern. "They're looking for quantum communications, neural networks, advanced transmitters. They never consider that we might be using playground games and graffiti to coordinate attacks." The Dark Swarm network was Kelly's masterpiece, a communication system that worked precisely because it seemed too primitive to be a threat. Resistance cells shared intelligence through everything from chalk drawings to knitting patterns to social media memes. The Nexary's AI constantly scanned for military communications, but ignored what it categorized as human cultural noise. "New reports coming in," another analyst called out. "The London cell is using football chants to coordinate timing. Shanghai is using mahjong tile arrangements. Lagos is using market price fluctuations." Kelly nodded, watching her global dashboard where seemingly random data points created clear patterns, if you knew how to read them. "Have we received confirmation from Mumbai?" "Yes," came in through the dating app network. "They're ready to launch Operation Marketplace." The beauty of Dark Swarm was its absolute unpredictability. Every cell used different methods, changed them regularly, and improvised new ones on the fly. The system worked because it wasn't really a system at all. It was organized chaos. "Incoming transmission," Mike announced. "The Nexary are scanning the global network again. They've detected some kind of pattern." "Perfect timing," Kelly grinned. "Launch Protocol Playground." Across the globe, resistance cells shifted their communication methods simultaneously. Market prices returned to normal. Graffiti was painted over. Social media patterns shifted. By the time the Nexary identified one method of communication, it had already been abandoned for 3 new ones. "They're trying to trace our command center," Mike reported, watching the alien scan patterns. "Their AI is flagging this location as a potential emotional support facility for juvenile humans." The room filled with muffled laughter. The Nexary's dismissal of human children as irrelevant had given the resistance its perfect cover. No one questioned why adults visited schools. No one monitored playground games or children's art. New intelligence incoming. An analyst called out, coded through TikTok dance challenges. Necessary fleet movements in Sector 7. Supply line vulnerabilities. Coordinated strike opportunities. Kelly watched the information flow, marveling at humanity's endless creativity. The Nexari had destroyed their advanced communication infrastructure, expecting to silence Earth's resistance. Instead, they had forced humans to innovate in ways that their rigid technological minds couldn't comprehend. "They're scanning again," Mike warned. "Switch to Protocol Picasso," Kelly ordered. Across the room, her team began creating children's art. Finger paintings and crayon drawings that contained encrypted battle plans and strategic intelligence. The Nexari scan passed over them without a pause. Their eye registered only primitive human cultural activities, never realizing it had just ignored the coordination of a global resistance network. "Remember," Kelly addressed her team as they continued their work, "their greatest weakness is their inability to imagine that something primitive could be powerful. They're fighting the last war, looking for the technology they expect us to use." She picked up another piece of chalk, beginning a new pattern. "We're fighting the next war, using every tool at our disposal, especially the ones they're too advanced to understand." The resistance network hummed along, hidden in plain sight, proving once again that humanity's greatest weapon was its ability to see value in everything, even children's games and crayon drawings. Lieutenant Commander Rick Havoc Torres floated in the cockpit of his hybrid fighter, a modified Nexari scout ship that would have made its original designers weep. The heads-up display flickered between alien symbols and human interface elements, powered by what was essentially a souped-up PlayStation running through alien quantum circuits. "All wings, sound off," he commanded, watching Earth's blue horizon curve below. His squadron of 30 hybrid fighters, dubbed the Frankenstein Fleet by ground control, hung in low orbit, waiting. Red wing, standing by. Blue wing, ready to raise hell. Green wing, good to go. The plan was insane, which, Torres had learned, meant it would probably work. The Nexari had adapted to human ground tactics, but space combat, that was still their domain. At least they thought it was. "Remember," Torres transmitted to his squadron, "they expect us to fight like them, to follow their rules of space combat. Lucky for us, humans wrote different rules about space battles. We just never got to try them for real." His tactical display lit up as the Nexari fleet descended from higher orbit. 50 capital ships in perfect formation, their energy signatures synchronized in what they considered optimal combat efficiency. "Now that's just showing off," Torres muttered. "All wings, initiate Operation Sci-Fi." The hybrid fighters split into their assigned groups, each implementing maneuvers pulled straight from various science fiction shows and games. The Nexari's combat AI, designed to counter logical space combat tactics, couldn't process what it was seeing. Red Wing executed a perfect Crazy Ivan, a maneuver borrowed from submarine warfare that made no sense in space until you factored in the Nexari's predictive targeting systems. Blue Wing went with the Adama maneuver, cutting power and dropping like rocks through space before reigniting engines at precisely calculated points. Green Wing scattered in a chaotic pattern that somehow matched the spiral sequence of the Fibonacci sequence. "They're trying to adapt," his tactical officer reported. "Their AI is attempting to find patterns in our movements." "Good luck with that," Torres grinned. "Each wing is using different fictional battle tactics. They'd need to understand 3 centuries of human entertainment to predict us." The space around Earth erupted into chaos. Human fighters darted between Nexari formations, their hybrid drives pushing the alien technology far beyond its intended limits. Where the Nexari expected calculated energy weapon exchanges, they got improvised missiles made from modified engine cores. Where they anticipated standard attack vectors, they found humans using their own ships as projectiles, after ejecting, of course. "Sir," his tactical officer called out. They're broadcasting. They're demanding we fight properly. Torres laughed. Send them the prepared response. Across all frequencies, the human fighters began broadcasting quotes from every space battle scene humans had ever imagined. The psychological impact was devastating. The Nexeri, who treated space combat as a pure science, were faced with humans treating it like an art form. Their formation is breaking. Red Leader reported. The smaller ships are falling back. Torres keyed his command channel. Time for the final. All wings. Initiate Operation Murphy's Law. What followed would be studied in military academies for centuries to come. The human fighters executed maneuvers that violated every principle of proper space combat. They used debris as shields, solar radiation as cover, and Earth's gravity as a weapon. They turned their ships' safety limitations into advantages, pushing systems far beyond their design capabilities, because humans had learned long ago that impossible just meant hasn't been done yet. The Nexeri fleet's perfect formation shattered. Their combat eye, unable to process the sheer variety of human tactics, began generating conflicting orders. Ships collided trying to avoid unpredictable human attack vectors. Their energy weapons, calibrated for precision strikes, couldn't track fighters that moved like they had death wishes. Status report. Torres commanded, watching the Nexeri fleet retreat in disarray. 17 capital ships disabled or destroyed. The rest are breaking orbit. Casualties on our side. 3 sprained wrists from excessive joystick use and 1 case of motion sickness. Torres allowed himself a small smile. Send word to command. Tell them the space lanes are open, and we've learned something interesting about our friends. What's that, sir? They may have mastered interstellar travel, he said, watching the Nexeri flee from what they'd dismissed as primitive hybrid ships. But they never learned to embrace the chaos of true space combat. Too bad for them, humans have been practicing it in our heads for centuries. Dr. James Cooper sat in his makeshift office, surrounded by walls covered in Nexeri communication transcripts. After months of studying their language, their culture, their very way of thinking, he'd found something that terrified him more than their weapons ever could. Their perfect, unwavering certainty. It's not just their technology that's rigid, he explained to the Joint Chiefs over a secure dark swarm connection. Their entire civilization is built on absolute conviction. They don't just think they're superior. They know it as an immutable fact. And that's their fatal flaw. He pulled up his analysis, showing patterns in Nexeri communications that went beyond mere language. Every message, every order, every response follows the same hierarchical structure. Their entire society is built like their computer systems. Binary, predictable, absolute. Fascinating. General Martinez responded. But how does this help us win the war? Cooper smiled, bringing up his project codenamed Babel's Children. Because the one thing a rigid system can't defend against is doubt. And humans, we've turned doubt into an art form. The first phase of his plan was already in motion. His team had been infiltrating modified human philosophical concepts into Nexeri communication channels, not direct challenges to their authority. Those would be rejected instantly. Instead, they sent simple questions, paradoxes, and concepts that had haunted human minds for millennia. Look at this, he pointed to a recent transmission intercept. A low-ranking Nexeri officer had asked their superior why they fought. Not for tactical clarification, but why they fought at all. It was the first recorded instance of a Nexeri questioning orders rather than just following them. It's spreading, Cooper explained, excitement clear in his voice. We introduced the concept of individual choice, not as a challenge, but as a question. What if the perfect order they believe in isn't the only way? What if their certainty isn't certainty at all? The results were cascading through the Nexeri fleet. Junior officers began exhibiting what their superiors termed human contamination, asking questions, suggesting alternatives, even questioning the logic of their tactics. The rigid hierarchy that had been their strength was becoming their weakness. But here's the real breakthrough, Cooper continued, pulling up his masterstroke. We introduced them to human stories, not our history or technology, our fiction. Our ability to imagine different worlds, different ways of thinking. The impact was devastating. The Nexeri, who had never developed the concept of fiction, were confronted with humanity's ability to create entire universes in their minds. Their logical frameworks couldn't process the idea of deliberately creating untrue narratives for entertainment and exploration. "Sir," his assistant burst in. "The Nexeri command ship is broadcasting on all frequencies. They're asking for clarification about a human concept." Cooper checked the transmission and laughed. "They're asking us to explain the ending of Inception. Apparently, it's caused 3 separate logic cascades in their tactical eye." The Joint Chiefs watched in amazement as more reports flooded in. Nexeri ships were breaking formation not from tactical necessity, but from individual crews making independent decisions. The perfect hierarchy was fracturing not from external attack, but from internal questions that had no logical answers. "The beautiful thing," Cooper explained, "is that we're not defeating their philosophy with ours. We're simply introducing the possibility of philosophy itself. Their certainty is crumbling not because we proved them wrong, but because we showed them that certainty itself might be an illusion." The culmination came when Cooper's team transmitted humanity's greatest philosophical questions, not as weapons, but as gifts. Questions about consciousness, free will, the nature of reality itself. Questions that humans had wrestled with for millennia, finding strength in the uncertainty rather than weakness. They thought they were superior because they had answers, Cooper told his team as they watched the Nexeri command structure dissolve into chaos. "We proved we were stronger because we never stopped questioning." As reports came in of Nexeri ships standing down, of crews requesting dialogue rather than combat, Cooper added one final note to his analysis. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon wasn't our ability to fight. It was our ability to doubt, to question, to imagine alternatives. We didn't defeat their certainty with superior force. We defeated it by showing them the power of uncertainty itself. General Emma Blackwood stood in the repurposed United Nations chamber, facing the Nexeri High Command across a table that had seen both war and peace. The alien leader's crystalline armor seemed less rigid now, showing subtle imperfections, modifications inspired by human influence. "Your species," the Nexeri Supreme Commander spoke through their advanced translator, "has fundamentally altered the fabric of our civilization. We came to teach you order. Instead, you taught us chaos." "Not chaos," Blackwood corrected, her voice firm but diplomatic. "Adaptation. Innovation. The power of uncertainty." She gestured to the holographic display showing Earth's combined defensive innovations. "Every weapon you brought against us became a tool for our survival. Every advantage you held became an opportunity for our growth." The chamber was filled with evidence of humanity's transformative influence. Nexeri junior officers wore modified armor incorporating human design elements. Their communications devices showed traces of human interface design. Even their posture had changed. Less rigid, more adaptive. "Our analysis suggested your technological inferiority made you vulnerable," another Nexeri commander admitted. "We failed to consider that limitation might be your greatest strength." Blackwood smiled, activating a presentation Dr. Cooper had prepared. "Humanity has never achieved perfection in anything. Instead, we learned to thrive in imperfection. Every flaw became a feature. Every limitation sparked innovation." The display showed scenes from the war. Hybrid fighters performing impossible maneuvers, resistance networks hidden in children's games, psychological warfare through philosophy and fiction. Each image represented a moment where humanity's supposed weaknesses had become unprecedented strengths. "We propose a new form of alliance," Blackwood continued. "Not one of dominance and submission, but of mutual growth. Your technology combined with our creativity. Your order balanced by our chaos." The Nexeri leaders shifted uncomfortably, a very human gesture they'd unconsciously adopted. "Our civilization has stood unchanged for millennia." The changes your species has introduced, they cannot be undone. That's precisely the point, Blackwood replied. You've begun to question, to adapt, to imagine alternatives. These aren't flaws in your civilization. They're the next step in its evolution. She laid out the terms of peace, joint military exercises where necessary precision would meet human innovation, cultural exchange programs to explore the balance between order and chaos, technological collaboration that would merge the best of both species approaches. Your combat simulations show a 97% probability that continued conflict would lead to mutual destruction, the Supreme Commander noted. Blackwood laughed. And that's exactly why we'll win peace instead. Because humans know that the most important possibilities are the ones that defy probability. The peace treaty that followed would reshape galactic civilization. Earth became known not as the planet that defeated the Nexari, but as the world that taught them to embrace change. Humanity's greatest victory wasn't destroying their enemy's strength. It was showing them that strength could take forms they'd never imagined. Remember this moment. Blackwood addressed the assembled human and Nexari representatives as the treaty was signed. They came to teach us submission through superior force. We taught them innovation through apparent weakness. They sought to perfect us. We showed them the power of imperfection. In the years that followed, the Alliance transformed both civilizations. Nexari ships began incorporating human-inspired modifications, their crews learning to trust instinct alongside logic. Human technology leaped forward, tempered by Nexari precision, but never losing its creative spark. And in the depths of space, new hybrid ships carried crews of both species, their mission no longer conquest but exploration. Each vessel was a testament to the lesson learned in humanity's greatest war. True strength lies not in perfection, but in the endless capacity to adapt, to imagine, and to grow. The Nexari had chosen violence, expecting to find weakness. Instead, they discovered that humanity's greatest weapon had never been our capacity for warfare. It was our ability to turn every weakness into strength, every ending into a new beginning, and every defeat into an opportunity for transformation. That was the final victory. Not just surviving the war, but emerging from it with both civilizations made stronger through their differences rather than their similarities.